All right.
And you heard Betty's coming, but we'll be here in a few minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to? Okay. Good morning. Our workshop meeting is now called to order. Thank you so much to my colleagues for taking the time to attend, especially after last night's meeting. Appreciate you having back here bright and early. Can we get the roll, Theodore?
Yes. Member Abicoga? Absent. Member Arenas?
Here.
Thank you. Alternate member Bozo? Absent. Ex officio member Burt? Absent. Member Candelas?
Here.
That was a here. Member Cohen?
Here.
Was a here. Alternate member Jung? Is absent. Member Foley? Absent. Member Jane? Absent. Member Kamei?
Here.
Thank you. Alternate member McAllister, absent. Alternate member Montano, absent. Alternate member Moore, absent. Alternate member Mulcahy, absent. Member Sell,
Here.
member Turner, absent. Member Weinberg,
Here.
thank you. Vice Chair Mahan is absent. Chair Lopez.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we're going to be continuing the discussion and starting where we left off, and we'll have also a chance to ask questions on some of the last few slides that we heard last time. With this one, we're going to start with a presentation on VTA's governance and board member roles, and Evelyn Tran, General Counsel, and I will co-present, and I'll start us off with structure and governance. So as you know, there's 6 different city groups based on geographic area, and all of them have slightly different ways in which they choose members, but the important thing is that it is up to the individual city groups. They make their 2-year appointment to the VTA board, and the different groups are based on population. And each city group also has an assigned alternate. Alternates vote when the primary member is absent for board, and folks may or may not know, also for committee meetings on which the main member serves. They also can be assigned to committees that are not standing committees, so some of the ad hoc committees and others. And the board, from those appointed by the city group, selects its leadership annually. Next slide, please. So as we touched on last time, VTA is a complex agency. In many other counties, it's the equivalent would be as many as 3 different agencies, and so it's a complex, significant role, and it's important that we're aligned and focused on our responsibilities and clear on what those are. The board shapes the direction of VTA through policy decisions on governance, administration, financial management, and congestion management. The decisions we make are informed by data and input from the community and committees, which are outlined in the staff reports. And so our job is really that oversight function. And one of the things I'm committed to as board chair is making sure that all of you as board members or alternates have the resources to get the information that you need. A critical responsibility of the board is appointing key leadership positions, which are the general manager and CEO and the general counsel. As the board follows a meticulous process to ensure we have the right individuals who can lead the team, who then hire the rest of the team at VTA. And then the Auditor General, as Carolyn mentioned last week, is a contracted position, and that firm is selected through a competitive process. Our financial oversight includes approving contracts exceeding $1 million. And I know for those of us who come from smaller city groups, maybe not for the city of San Jose, but that may be a bigger number than what we're used to for some of our decisions, but it really is because VTA is such a large agency. We adopt resolutions and ordinances, represent VTA at events and in our community. And with other stakeholders, and we advocate for our organization and our projects at the regional, state, and federal level. And of course, we provide organizational oversight. These are significant responsibilities, and while we come from different perspectives, backgrounds, we wear other hats in our city and other agency roles. On the board of directors, we work together to ensure that we're moving VTA forward and into the future. So this goes into the expectations for board members and alternates. Since our primary role is to ensure that VTA fulfills its mission, we must actively support VTA's goals and policies. We need to have a thorough understanding and make decisions that are aligned and consistent. And in these roles, we think regionally because our decisions have an impact on the entire county, Santa Clara County, and also beyond throughout the greater region with our regional partnerships. And we look beyond just our own communities, which we otherwise represent, and try to have a broader view and a more regional perspective, and consider the needs of the larger population when developing transportation solutions. And that really goes to all the residents and taxpayers of our county, who even, they may be transit riders, they may use our expressways, the bike lanes that we help support. These are all things that VTA has an important role in. As mentioned, we represent VTA, and in that role, we advocate for the organization and build relationships with the community to gain support and increase the public participation and transparency that we fulfill. And so, as a board, we have different tools available to us in supporting the organization and different roles that we play. But we're aligned with staff and with everyone in moving the organization forward. So active participation in the board and committee meetings is crucial because it is such a large and complex agency. A lot of the key work really gets done at the committee level. And so I found that it's valuable to not be afraid to jump in and delve into some of the issues, ask questions, get the follow-ups, so that we're able to have those discussions at the committee level, and when it goes up to the board level, that final decision is informed by the input that we all give in the different committees we serve on. And I encourage you to take advantage of the briefings that our Government Affairs team offers. They are also always happy to set up additional briefings on other topics that we had at our last workshop. We had a number of questions that came up, and they're always happy, whether it's with Government Affairs or with arranging other team members throughout the agency to answer your questions that you need to fulfill your duties. And I also want to recognize and appreciate the presence of the alternate members because, again, a little bit different from some of the other agencies, at least that I've served with. The alternate members really have a key function with VTA. Because there's so much going on, it really adds a lot of value, and so I always appreciate the alternates that we have attending board and committee meetings, even when they're not directly serving or standing in for the other board members, because it really is important to stay up to date, stay informed, to participate in those briefings, so that we can keep moving forward. And also encourage us to respond to meeting polls. The board clerk their office has a tough job in keeping us all moving and scheduled, and so any kind of advance notice, communication, cooperation with your staff with scheduling is always appreciated. No such thing as over communicating. In that front, they really will try to work with you, but as much as we can, we're trying to avoid having to reschedule meetings. We understand that conflicts will come up throughout the year, but that's where it's helpful to work in advance as much as we can. And there may be times when, especially for committee meetings, for example, we may convene as a committee of the whole. And while official decisions cannot be made without a quorum, meeting as a committee of the whole still allows for discussion and for staff to hear any concerns or questions, as well as really crucially provides the opportunity for the public to engage and provide feedback. One thing that's really important, if we can go to the next slide. The board must maintain clear and structured communication with VTA staff to ensure efficiency and confusion. Carolyn, our general manager, and Evelyn, our general counsel, and the auditor general are always available to answer your questions. You can also direct questions to Beverly's team, Government Affairs, or Elaine's, the board office, and they will coordinate the responses. It's important that as board members, we act as one body, and board members do not give orders in private or in public to subordinates of the general manager and or the general counsel. We really need this to maintain clear lines of responsibility and accountability and prevent any confusion. I also want to touch on board referrals, which again, for some of those who may be new to an agency, is something that's a little bit different from a lot of the other ones that we participate in. Board referrals are a tool to allow you to submit concerns, ideas, or suggestions for the administration to review and potentially take action on. There's some ideas that sometimes this may be informational, but sometimes these might require significant resources. And for those referrals, they should be submitted in writing and must have the support of at least 3 board members. You can submit referrals during items of concern and referral items on the agenda, which comes at the end of the agenda of the regular board meetings. And you can also send them to the general manager of the board office. The written referrals are typically posted on the website for transparency, as well as the responses, and they'll also be included in the board packet when staff has them in advance. We can go to the next slide. This year is about the types of meetings that we convene in. While our regular meetings are ordinarily at the County Government Center, workshop meetings are typically held where we are today in River Oaks. Most items for these meetings require a simple majority or 7 votes to pass, but some items might require a higher threshold, like budget augmentation or resolutions of necessity. And to ensure transparency, we notice meetings in accordance with the Brown Act. And now I'll go over to Evelyn.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Evelyn Tran, General Counsel. Well, if I turn on the mic, it might work better. Good morning. Evelyn Tran, General Counsel. So last week we were short on time, so I kind of flew through the presentation, and so I'm happy to be back here to really cover this topic adequately with our board chair. So happy to be here. Board members really play a crucial role in ensuring that VTA operates in a transparent, responsible, and ethical manner while serving the best interests of the public. And these responsibilities are enumerated in VTA's Enabling Act, which is codified in the California Public Utilities Code, VTA's Administrative Code, which is adopted by the board, and that's a requirement that's in our Enabling Act, California Government Code 1090, the Political Reform Act, FPPC regulations, the Brown Act, federal regulations, and just the common law. Last night, the board took action to amend our administrative code, and so for 2025, and we will be providing you with the updated admin code. Okay, so let's start with the fiduciary responsibilities, and some of the presentation, well, my part will echo a bit of what our chair had just covered, but I think it's pretty important. The response to the fiduciary responsibilities of the board is really fundamental, and it applies to all boards, right? So not just this board, but across the board, whether it's governmental, private, or nonprofit. Board members must adhere to 2 primary fiduciary duties. We talked about that last time, the duty of loyalty, duty of care, but it's really important to reiterate that so while you're making decisions, they have to best serve the interests of VTA and the region, and not just individual board members or their local priorities. And you have to act diligently, competently, and prudently, which means, you know, it's a lot of work, but reviewing your board materials and asking the questions, which, by the way, you know, great questions last night, so thank you for that. As part of your oversight role, VTA's Enabling Act actually has certain specific enumerated responsibilities. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it includes the adoption of the biannual budget, determining which transit and transportation projects that should be pursued, and how to fund those, how those should be financed, setting the rates for service, and then the sale of bonds. And, you know, you did some of that last night as well. So VTA has adopted a code of ethics. I'm just going to wait for the next slide to. Thank you. It's in VTA's administrative code, and that's where you'd find it. And it ensures ethical conduct and helps maintain public trust in the agency. It applies to the directors, designated employees who file Form 700, so all of the executives here are designated employees, and consultants who makes or participates in the making of governmental decisions. And those core principles are the four set forth here, and really it is really to avoid conflicts of interest, ensure that the public and the community benefits from these decisions, and that the decisions are made in a public and transparent manner and compliant with the laws. Next slide. The Code of Ethics recognizes the ethical responsibilities of public officials under existing law, and it prescribes ethical standards of conduct. And so here you'll find, again, a non-exhaustive list of those that are in our Code of Ethics. No incompatible or inconsistent employment that could create conflicts, no participation in decisions where personal interests would impair your impartiality, no acceptance of gifts over $50 from current or potential contractors, and that's the value that's set forth in our Code of Ethics that's been adopted by the board. That's also required by our federal regulations. No use of confidential information for personal gain, no involvement in decisions where a financial interest exists. Next slide, Elaine. And Code of Ethics also sets forth the consequences for those violations. It ranges from public censure to removal from office to return of forfeiture of funds and penalties. So if you find that maybe there might be a conflict of interest, come talk to me and we can work through those issues. And if there is, you must disclose the interest. You have to refrain from participating in the decision making, and if there's a closed session, you have to leave the closed session room. Again, when in doubt, contact your counsel. Next slide, please. Okay, Government Code 84308. I really flew through this last time, but what is it? It's part of the California Political Reform Act, and it focuses on campaign contributions and their potential influence on decision-making within public agencies. This would apply to contracts that come before the board. So it prohibits government officials from accepting campaign contributions of more than $500 from individuals or entities with a financial interest in the decisions that are made. And last time I said 250, it was updated as of 2025, so we've updated that to the 500. And the restriction applies 12 months before and 12 months after the final decision is made. If this situation arises, you really have two options. One, you can disclose and recuse yourself from participating in the decision, or you can return the contribution within 30 days of when you have knowledge that there's this conflict, and that would allow you to participate in the decision. Next slide, please. And what VTA has done to assist you in identifying whether or not a Government Code 4308 applies to that particular decision-making is that it's flagged on all of your board memos. And then there is an attachment that identifies the participants to that contract. Okay, next slide. Right, I'm going to quickly go through, which we didn't have time last time, was to go through the committees that we have here at VTA. And we do have a really robust committee structure. These committees are assigned special areas of responsibilities. They handle the detailed work and deliberate before making recommendations to the board. So as a result, it helps streamline the board's decision-making process. So the next few slides, we're going to just go through and identify those committees. The first one are the board standing committees, and you're aware of those, so we don't need, I was going to say we don't need to go back to that slide. Thanks, Elaine. And we have this slide here are our advisory committees, and we have 5 of those. The membership of these bodies vary according to their specific area of responsibility, and they're set forth there. Board members are generally not allowed to serve on the advisory committees except for the PAC, where alternate board members may serve on it. Oversight committees. These are either specified in our ballot measures and are required by the voters or related to a major project. We have 3 currently, and the membership of these committees are defined in their bylaws. Next slide, please. So we have several policy advisory boards to ensure that local jurisdictions are involved in the planning, designing, and construction of major transportation projects. And we have here the Diridon Station, EBRC, and the SR 152 Mobility Partnership. Next slide. The board chairperson may establish and assign board members and alternates to temporary committees. These are our ad hoc committees that are focused excuse me, on addressing specific issues. We currently have 3 of them. And they're set forth there. Next slide, please. I'm going to conclude with this. This is our, this is our process. Most items go through the committees, either the advisory or the standing committees, and then it goes to the board. Or sometimes certain items go through both advisory committees and standing committees before it goes to the board for action and then implementation. And I will conclude my presentation on that slide. Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll just jump in to say my job as board chairs to ensure all of you can be successful in your roles. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this really is a large and complex agency, and if you have questions, if there, even for those of us who may have previously been on the board, there's a lot that goes on, and so if there's something that's unclear that we can be doing better, we can always be improving, and we're a learning organization. One of the things that I'm working on right now in response to some of the experiences we had at the beginning of this month with the committees is to make sure that we can streamline the process for the committees and make sure that board engagement can be consistent. And so you'll be seeing, I think, later this year, other ideas come up for things that we can streamline, right size, just get more efficient, and make sure that the work of the agency, because so much of it gets done at the committee level, can continue, and so that is my commitment. We had an unusually high degree of turnover this year, which I think impacted that. But we want to make sure that we're doing and creating the structures and putting them in place to make sure that no matter what happens, that the agency is able to continue its work. And of course, you're also there representing your city groups, and so any kind of questions that your staff or residents have are things that can also go to board staff as well, and that I'm always happy to hear about and learn from if we can be doing better. So with that, I'll go to questions and answers, and if there's any questions on my section, Evelyn's section, or anything else that we've heard. Yeah, please, Director Kamei.
Thank you. I was just curious, I know that in the city of San Jose, we report behests, and I am not aware, I mean, I haven't asked anybody, so, but I don't know if VTA also has that, you know, as part of our own sunshine law, we report it all, right? You ask someone for, even if it's for a nonprofit or whatever, we report it. But I don't know if VTA does that as well.
I'm happy to answer that. So when you disclose gifts under your Form 700, it also applies to behested gifts as well. And so that's, for our agency, that's how you would disclose that. But also, at the same time, in regard to whether or not you have to recuse yourself from a particular action, behested gifts also apply.
So even though it's not for us in any way, if it's for someone, like a nonprofit, you still report the ask?
Oh, so you're talking about I'm sorry. Specifically for nonprofits have a different rule, and I mean,
Right, but if I ask company X, and company X sponsors something that this nonprofit is doing. I'm asking, so in the city of San Jose, we have to report it all, especially if they do make a sponsorship or whatever. And I was just curious if that rule applies here as well.
So we don't have any rule that explicitly requires that you report that. We have, I know that, and I won't disclose attorney-client communication, but I have provided advice in that particular instance. And to the extent that it involves you and any particular benefit. So for example, if the, let's say there was, you're seeking a gift or some particular donation toward a project that you're working on that specifically benefits your office, we would ask that you not participate in decisions relating to that particular, that specific transaction. So
Yeah,
I mean, we can-
that's fine.
Yeah.
I just know that even through the Form 700, FPPC decided to put all of the committees together. I'm on like 5 different committees, and it's like I'm doing a bunch of 700s here and there. And for San Jose, I mean, I report it, but I don't know if it's required to report also to VTA.
Well, when you file your Form 700, you actually list all of the jurisdictions in which you're involved in, right? And so that disclosure then is made, whether it's the city or VTA. So that's on the record when it's submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? No. We'll take public comment for this item as well. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak?
Yes, we do have one. Blair, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman. Thanks for the meeting last night. This is week 2 that you're kind of an introduction to new board members, how VTA can work. Thank you that you're really trying to address how the VTA board process can be a more equal process. San Jose has an important voice and needs to transit. I think we're trying to, you're learning how to distribute power among the different cities better. Good luck in that continued good effort and learning how to do that. I was a bit off in my calculations last night about contract issues with ATU. I'm sorry about that. Really good luck in contract negotiations for all of us. Any ideas can be of help, I think, even if I'm a little off in some places myself. Sorry about that. And good luck in being accountable, making the future of the process not just a wink and a nod to each other during the process, but a real open, accountable public meeting process. Good luck how to learn how to do that better. Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thanks. Closing public comment. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, if not, we'll go to item 2.2, which is a presentation on our transit-oriented communities and transit-oriented development program. And we'll hear from Jesse O'Malley-Sullis, Director of Multimodal Planning and Real Estate, and Deborah DeGang, Chief Planning Officer at VTA.
See, those are red, these are green. I'll figure it out. So thank you, Chair and board members. And the Chair went at me just a little bit because I wanted to be the first to use Jesse's new title. She is now the Director of Multimodal Planning and Real Estate. She's taken over our CMA planning team. And so we will, over the next year, you'll see more of her in that area. But today she'll focus on our TOD, TOC.
Great. Thank you all for having us. As Deborah mentioned, I'm Jessie O'Malley-Sullis, and I'm VTA's Director of Multimodal Planning and Real Estate. Thank you for having us. allowing us to share a little bit of background on some of our key programs that involve significant board review over the course of the year. My primary focus in today's presentation is going to be about the transit-oriented development and transit-oriented communities programs. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about our work as a congestion management agency, which relies on the expertise of the Land Use Development Review Program led by Rob's work on our team. You may recall that the VMT mitigation study final report was on the consent agenda last night, and that was work product that came out of this group. The focus for this program is to promote county-wide land use and transportation coordination. The team reviews development applications and patterns across the county and weighs in on how VTA would like new development to interface and enhance our transit services throughout the county. Foundational to this team's work is the Land Use and Development Review Policy, which was most recently reviewed and updated at the February board meeting. Focus areas for the land use team include the Development Review Program, where VTA staff reviews development projects and land use plans to promote transit supportive development, prioritize sustainable travel modes, and protect VTA's facilities and assets countywide. This group also facilitates regular coordination meetings between VTA and local jurisdiction staff on land use and transportation priorities. Additionally, VTA hosts quarterly meetings with local jurisdiction planning and transportation staff called the Community Design and Transportation Network. This team produces and updates the Community Design and Transportation Manual. This manual has a 20-year legacy at our agency and was recently updated in 2024 and offers best practices and approaches for guidelines to promote sustainable and livable communities in our county. Additional efforts from this team include serving as resources to other land use related efforts, such as the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities, or ASIC grant programs, and resources to help cities on the use of implementation of SB 743, or the use of vehicle miles traveled for evaluating projects countywide. VTA's transit-oriented development program. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. VTA's transit-oriented development program furthers our congestion management agency goals by prompting ridership growth, spurring and inspiring additional densities in our station areas, providing long-term and stable revenue sources for our agency, and as well as helping with our county on local affordable housing crisis and affordable production in our community. You can see on the slide in front of you, this is our transit-oriented development portfolio, which is made up of 28 sites countywide and range from as north as the city of Mountain View and as far south as the city of Gilroy. Our portfolio has over 140 acres of development opportunity. And one of the things that's key of pointing out is most of the work, or all of the work that we do as a part of our transit-oriented development program, is based on the policy work that was approved by our board in the transit-oriented communities policy that was updated in 2024. One of our commitments through the work of our program is on affordable housing, and this is a part of our overall policy in the transit-oriented community space. Every site that we build on in our transit-oriented development portfolio that has housing will have a minimum of 25% affordable housing on site, affordable to households earning 60% of area median income and below. We also have another commitment, or a layer to that, that roughly half of those units that we produce will also be affordable to households earning 50% of area median income and below. And so we're targeting very deep levels of affordability. Portfolio-wide, so at full build-out of our portfolio, over 40% of our build-out will be affordable to households earning 60% of area median income and below. Included in your packet today is a thumbnail. One of the things to point out is the Numbers that you see associated with each of our active projects on this slide also relates to the map that you saw on the slide before and the thumbnails in your packets. You can see details on each individual site that is a part of our active projects pipeline. Big picture to tell you a little bit about where we're at with our pipeline. We have 2,500 square feet of retail in the pipeline, roughly just under 1,000 units of market rate units, and over 1,700 or nearly 1,800 affordable housing units in our pipeline. A total of 2,800 housing units, 65% of which are for affordable housing. And on any given year, at this stage, we range between $1 million and $5 million in income. And our today's current balance with our transit-oriented development fund is roughly $30 million. Our current initiatives, we have 2 projects that were completed historically, both at Ohlone Chenoweth and Almaden Station, that had a total of 444 units. 244 of those are affordable. We have 7 active projects in the county. Those equate to 1,600 units. 1,400 of which will be for affordable housing. We do plan to release 3 new affordable housing projects in 2025, and that includes a portion of the River Oaks campus that we sit on today.
Hello?
Okay. Our Great Mall Station site, when we build out BART Phase 1 and we opened our facilities associated with BART Phase 1, our Milpitas Transit Center now serves as the hub for the city of Milpitas, and so our Great Mall site has been released for transit-oriented development in that location.
Wow, see?
We also plan on actively developing Hofstadter, and so you'll see activity coming to the board on these 3 sites in the course of the year here in 2025. One of the other priorities that we're working closely with government affairs on is looking at legislation that would help us pursue employee housing or workforce housing priority for our property. Some of the things that we'll be looking toward including in that legislation may include the ability to form special purpose entities to limit risk, but also to form joint ventures or participate in joint ventures so we can also participate in the vertical build of the sites as well as our ground lease revenues. The image on the right-hand side is our first project that broke ground in over 20 years. This is the site at Tamian Station. It's 135 affordable housing family units that in this summer folks will be starting to move into. So we're super excited about that. The impact of the transit-oriented development program is as follows. At full build-out, which we anticipate being able to achieve in 2045, is we'll build out over 11 million square feet over the course of the portfolio. 7,500 units will be for housing, 3,000 of which will be for affordable housing, achieving that 40% goal that we identified in the affordable housing portion of our policy. And 5 million square feet will be for commercial development. What that yields in terms of results is that we are going to produce over 23,000 new daily riders for VTA bus, light rail, Caltrain, and BART ridership. That equates to $20 million a year in fare box revenue across VTA, Caltrain, and BART. We anticipate our annual ground lease revenues by 2045 hitting an average of $60 million a year. And our TOD fund balance that sits at $30 million today would grow to the size of roughly $500 million. So some of the things that we are utilizing the transit-oriented development fund to align with VTA's initiatives are things that you've heard about recently at board meetings. The VTA TOD funds will help fund the headquarters move. It will fund the recently approved $25 million for yard and field facilities improvements. the acquisition of the Security Operations Center that was approved at the February board meeting. And then on an annual basis, we fund $750,000 in grants that go out to the community as a part of our transit-oriented communities grants. The Transit-Oriented Communities Program and Grant was launched in 2024, and we're excited about the investment that this program will yield in our Santa Clara County communities. Transit-oriented communities are mixed-use, mixed-income, equitable communities within a half-mile of transit stations, where people of all ages and backgrounds can live, work, learn, shop, and play, and have the necessities of daily life to live within what we call a 15-minute community, which is where people can travel and access everything they need on a daily basis by walking, biking, rolling, or accessing transit. Transit-oriented communities benefits includes reducing the need to drive in our community, increasing transit ridership, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and promoting overall health and well-being in our communities. Through multi-sector partnerships at the doorstep of transit, we can accommodate new growth next to transit in ways that support thriving and accessible neighborhoods. This is all equates to a long-term recipe for ridership growth in our community. The program also supports MTC's updated funding standards for our station areas, including meeting regional goals for affordable housing. The program implements transit-oriented communities through leveraging grant opportunities. For instance, at the end of 2024, we received an award from VTA for the Transit-Oriented Development Planning Grant for $900,000, which is going to the Gilroy Transit Center for station area planning at that location, which will help envision what it will be like as Caltrain service increases over time to that location, as well as when high-speed rail connects to that site. We also implement transit-oriented communities through VTA's Transit-Oriented Communities Grant. Can you help me push to the next slide? Okay. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Let me just check in my presentation. So I believe, are on the second to last slide in the presentation package. And 2.210, and the slide should look like this for your reference. In 2024, VTA released $750,000 in funding to remove barriers to thriving transit-oriented communities. The grant categories covered planning and policy to update station area plans consistent with MTC's TOC policy, community resilience and preservation to ensure that all community members thrive within transit-oriented communities, education and engagement to increase awareness of transit-oriented communities, placekeeping, arts and activation to enhance public spaces around transit with arts and cultural activities. We awarded 14 grantees, 12 of which were for community-based organizations, and 2 for cities that were awarded funds for planning efforts around our transit stations. VTA will be issuing our second round of $750,000 associated with the next year's grant cycle coming up in April of 25. So please let your constituents and neighborhoods know that the funds will be released again shortly. And the very last slide in the presentation touches on items that we'll be bringing to you over the course of the year. And so in our Transit-Oriented Communities Grant Program, we anticipate coming back to the board with a funding opportunity in May of 2025, which is what I just spoke to. The grant awards in November of 2025, In our land use and multimodal planning group, we'll be bringing the land use and development review program update in fall of 2025. And VTA's complete streets policy update will be coming to committees in September and November of the next year and December board. Our transit-oriented development program, you'll be seeing in the coming months an authorization to release RFPs for both Great Mall and River Oaks. We'll be asking for authorization to move forward with development on the Hofstadter site. And then we'll be bringing back developer selection both for Great Mall and River Oaks, likely in September or fall of 2025. We'll also, by the end of the year, be bringing back the 28th Street Little Portugal Design Development Framework, which is the station area plan around the very first, or one of the first BART Phase 2 stations in the alignment connecting to Berryessa. And then there'll be a myriad of closed session TOD items, which I think you all are used to hearing from me on. And with that, we have concluded the presentation, and Deborah and I are here and available to answer any questions you may have, and we'll share the mic.
Thank you so much. Let's see first, actually, if we have public comment. Anyone for this one?
There are no hands raised. Oh, my apologies. Hold on. Looks like someone just raised their hand. Blair, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, thank you. I'm in attendance. I'm here. I guess I have nothing much to say at this time, but just thank you for this item.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you. Close public comment. Yeah, Director Kamei, any questions or comments?
Yeah, no, I think the program is terrific. It makes a lot of sense to have transit next to the development. I'm curious as to why or what are the barriers to making it denser? In my district, I have a 12-story building that I wish was next to more better transit. We do have a bus, but, it's certainly, when you have 700 units in a building, you would hope that people would take transit. And as you look at where the areas are growing, I'd love to have 1,000 units next to the BART, 1,000 units next to Great Mall. I mean, I just feel that, I know it's more expensive, so there are challenges, but I also think that it's a lost opportunity not to double the size, because if it's right there, why not? So I think that it's something to think about as we look at these projects, and I know that, you mentioned River Oaks would be 300, Great Mall 300, Hofstadter 130. I know limitations on acreage or whatever it is, and that it is costlier to go up, but I think we need to start thinking of higher densities along those corridors.
Okay. So thank you. I think it's a great question. There's a few things that make going up particularly challenging, especially in today's real estate market. The cost escalations of construction that have occurred recently make going to type 1 or higher heights in terms of construction types a little bit more challenging. What you will see is that at our Berryessa station, at our Milpitas BART stations, when we are focusing in and around BART, we're holding the line on minimum heights and densities. So for instance, at our Berryessa site, we asked for 10 plus stories in height, and we received 10 plus stories in height. So we will continue to hold the line on density. Our minimum density allowable on our portfolio build out is 75 DUs per acre. We consider that the baseline. One of the other barriers on additional density is affordable housing. The funding source that most affordable housing developers utilize are TCAC tax credits. And the amount that you can get approved in any single phase has a cap limit. And so that does create some barriers to the size. the total dollar amount and the number of units that you can be competitive with. So for instance, when I'm talking about River Oaks as a site or some of our other affordable housing sites, we break them up into multiple phases so that they can be competitive at the state tax credit market and push through. Because if you have larger projects, they oftentimes go beyond the total cost that's allowable for that project funding source. And so that's a barrier for affordable housing. On the market rate housing, the barrier is just the true imbalance of cost and rents at this time. And so I think that'll switch over time, and we'll see that come back into balance. And you'll see additional densities created as the market, the real estate market kind of stabilizes over time.
Thanks so much. Director Weinberg and then Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for this presentation. And Ms. Solis, congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
This was a very informative workshop presentation. I think that there's an opportunity for the VTA as a whole to advertise what we're doing here, because this is an incredibly important contribution that the VTA is making to life in Silicon Valley. So I hope that happens. Couple of questions. First, can you talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how a project happens? Do you go through the Surplus Land Act? Is there notice of availability, and that's how developers find out about it, or is there another process? How is it that developers find out that there's an opportunity to work with the VTA to build this type of housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Surplus Land Act, at I believe it was the February board meeting, we took the last 4 sites in our portfolio forward with a resolution for a Surplus Land Act exemption. So almost every site that we have in our portfolio is exempt from the Surplus Land Act. That's because our affordable housing policy allows us to be identified as a key producer of affordable housing. And so we're already achieving the state's or HCD's goals on affordable housing, and that's why we were allowed to receive the exemption status. So we're being recognized for the great work that we're doing at the state level, which allows us to streamline our activities in development. We also utilize the state's clearinghouse or distribution list when we go out with an RFP. So everybody statewide who's in the state clearinghouse for affordable housing production sees that our RFP is being released publicly in a very significant manner. Before we do the RFP, we go out in the community that we're actually working in and do community engagement first. And once we have had the opportunity to socialize the work that is coming, we then come back to the VTA board, ask for permission to release an RFP. We highlight what the priorities of the development site would be, what we anticipate the yield would be, and we take it out to market. VTA has earned a reputation of being very transaction-oriented, and so we're starting to get a myriad of diverse partners coming in on all of our development sites, which is great. We're not going to put all our eggs in one basket in terms of our development partners, but all of the sites that we're working on today have a pretty nice diverse group of partners that we're working with. After we come to terms with our development partners, we bring that back to the board approves the final terms of the deal, and then we enter into the contractual documentation to move forward and move into construction and development, and then hopefully move in of all these great units that are being produced.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I just wanted to add to that quickly, sorry for interrupting, that VTA is very unique among transit agencies to have this kind of transit-oriented development program, both in terms of the amount of land that we own and have retained ownership for over the decades, to be able to develop, but then really looking at how do we maximize revenues that we can use as an agency to further our goals, to the extent that Jessie and her team are now going to start putting out guidelines and playbooks for other transit agencies to help them teach them how to do similar activities.
Thank you. That's very insightful, and I appreciate that. That helps me. In looking at the map of where there are transit-oriented development programs, that's the map that's on the screen right now, fortunately, I can't help but notice that there is really a dearth of projects in the central and north part of the counties, with the exception of Winchester and Evelyn. I'm curious what the process is that the VTA uses to select sites, and if it isn't the process that's sort of leading to that imbalance of where the development is, do you have any insights on why there seems to be a lack of development in the central and northern part of the county?
Yeah, so all of our transit-oriented development sites are associated with VTA real estate assets that our agency owns. So when you look at our portfolio and when you look at it beyond the map, when you're on the street and taking a look at what our sites look like, these are oftentimes park and ride lots, perhaps excess land that was utilized in a build out or a capital project for an extension, things like that. So the map really is a function of our, in many ways, our rail lines or our BRT activity, things like that, where we have purchased land for construction staging for capital projects, or we have underutilized park and ride lots. And so it really aligns with the assets or the acquisition that we do on the capital project side. So for instance, if we are extending the light rail to East Ridge, if there are sites that we acquire for that project, and they're no longer needed for construction staging, they automatically become transit-oriented development sites once they're done with the capital build. So the locations and the alignment that you're seeing are really a historic pattern of where that rail investment or transit investment has occurred in the county.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that because there's more transit investment in the eastern part of the county, that's simply where the land is, where there's opportunities to have this sort of development. Is that right?
So, but I also want to echo that, because if you look at the map, you can see that the orange line, for example, in the western part of the western part of the orange line, does not have much transit-oriented development. So that's really a factor of the fact that when that was built, we did not need to condemn and keep property at the time. So again, it might be before most of our times. Ken might be in the room. We might have one person in the room that remembers all those details, but.
Yeah, I think some of the investment on the west side is because of Caltrain, and Caltrain has, pretty much owns those lots in those areas. So along that, was that orange on the west side? Yeah, so I guess that was, so I think that's part of it is a lot of the transportation investment on the west side has been, and through the West Valley has been on Caltrain. And so that's part of or not West Valley, but the west side has been Caltrain. So Caltrain owns those. They do have a TOD-oriented development program. It's not as extensive as ours.
They
Ours
don't
is
have
much
as
more
much
extensive
land.
because they don't have as much land. Their lots are usually a little smaller. They don't necessarily own all of them outright. So where we can partner with them, like to the south where we have some of those lots or with the cities, we try to do that.
That's right.
Okay.
I will also add, this is kind of a unique function of the history of VTA that I think many transit agencies, when you look at this map, when construction was done, they would have sold the land. And so the leadership at the time decided to hold the land for this purpose in the future.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And I just wanted to ask the question that I did because I'm from the city of Los Altos. I mean, we're a small city. We're a happy city. I think that the VTA's mission is critical. I think it's important, and I think that it is vital for the well-being of the county. But I do often hear from my constituents, hey, we're paying a lot of money that goes to the VTA, and we don't get anything out of the VTA. And I find myself spending far too much time disabusing my constituents of that. But I can tell you that I have constituents who watch what's going on and look at materials, and I get asked, how come there's so much focus on providing resources in other places than here? And that's not to accuse anyone, but it is a perception that I am having difficulty with in my region. So thank you very much.
Thanks much. Yeah, Director Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. First, just back to one of the questions that Rosemary asked about the number of units. Just to be clear about the River Oaks site, 300 is just a very small first piece at River Oaks. There will be well over 1,000
That's right.
housing units on this site
That's right.
eventually. You mentioned that this year we're moving forward with RFPs for River Oaks and Great Mall, and then you mentioned activation of Hofstadter. What is the distinction?
Yeah.
What does that mean that as opposed to an RFP?
We have been talking to another agency about doing a joint partnership at that location at the Hofstadter site. If we come to terms with that other agency, we'd bring that to the board for consideration. But you are allowed to do a direct deal without offering it out with another agency if they're a funding agency. And maybe Evelyn, you can talk a little bit more about the law that permits agency to agency work. I know we've utilized it in the city of Morgan Hill in the past when we've worked on,
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the legal
Okay.
part at this point. I guess you've sort of answered my question. I
Yes.
mean, it's a different, you're proposing this differently, but that doesn't necessarily mean the timeline is different. It's just a different
that's right.
focus.
In some ways, it will be perhaps quicker.
Okay. And I won't give my opinion about the Hofstadter site at this point, just to say that I was curious about what you were thinking there. When it comes to Little Portugal, that site, you're talking about beginning the visioning, I suppose, at that site right now. I mean, I know that
It's a planning effort.
clearly the timeline there is much longer than some of these others, right?
That's right.
So we're just sort of thinking about planning ahead, but not necessarily moving too fast because we don't want to be too far ahead of construction, right? Or we wouldn't even, because of construction, we'd probably have to wait.
Correct. So like the money that we brought in from FTA for the city of Gilroy station area planning, in prior cycles, we received additional funds from FTA's Transit-Oriented Development Planning Grant, which yielded money that we contributed to the city of San Jose that has gone into the Five Wounds Urban Village Plan update that's occurring at that location now. So we're future planning, right? Getting ready for what will happen when the transit infrastructure is there. The interesting thing is because of the size of the land and the holdings that VTA will have control over at 28th Street, there may be opportunities to do some concurrent development with some of the BART Phase 2 extension construction. And so there is a possibility that you might be able to deliver some of the transit-oriented development at that site around the same time that BART Phase 2 will be done, depending on whether or not our contract allows for land to be released ahead of delivering the extension project.
Yeah, that would be really, really great to be able to say we're opening this and also have this development ready to go at that time. The TOD fund balance, is that limited in its potential in its uses, or is it potential general fund money?
It's set aside right now, and it is basically the discretion of the board. So the board has recently approved 2 transactions that will yield utilizing some of the monies coming out of transit-oriented development to cover the debt service coverage for the new headquarters and also for the safety and security building acquisition, as well as funding the $25 million for the yards and facility improvements out in the field. So the board has discretion over the utilization of those funds.
And I just want to just echo my excitement over the new headquarters building and being able to move forward with that, with the majority of it funded from TOD funds. I think many agencies that have to do facility improvements or new buildings have to dip into their operating funds to do that. So the fact that our focus can be on this TOD funds is really thrilling.
And while I've expressed my sadness that the headquarters will no longer be in my district, I am excited about the future development at this site that will enhance this area, which would be really important given the size of the other developments around it. This piece will be very useful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
a significant number of new households will be here, as well as some commercial opportunities, which should yield a significant increase in ridership at the station.
Right next to it and across the street are the two largest apartment complexes in all of Silicon Valley. So adding in more development here will really enhance this community a lot.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Any other questions? Yeah, Director Sell, please.
So it was mentioned, before that, River Oaks will eventually be 1,000 units. I guess, what's the limitation that, oops, sorry, okay, thanks. What's the limitation for the timeline that it has to go so slow in phases? Is it because there's not enough financing for it right now? Or is it because of market factors or?
It's two things. It's market factors. Market rate housing today in San Jose is not penciling. And so you're not seeing any, you're not seeing a lot of permits being issued for market rate housing here locally. I think that's consistent countywide, but it definitely is the case here. And then when I was talking a little bit about the limitations of the affordable housing tax credit funding, it does limit the size of projects that can move forward at a given time. Those funds are highly competitive. We're competing with all over the state to get those funds and move forward. And so it does really require careful planning, diligence to continue with phases at the site. If we have a really robust market rate scenario or a market place, we could move forward really quickly on moving, more phases at this location in a faster manner. But what I will say is development sites like this, 17 acres in San Jose, that gets built out over 10, 15 years in some marketplaces, because you miss the cycle, the real estate cycle in one cycle, and you hit it in another. So it does take some time.
Okay, and then, we're retaining, VTA is retaining ownership of all of this. You're just having developers make it. I've read about other models where a transit agency would have a private investor invest to build it, and then it's kind of like a loan for the transit agency. The private investor builds it all up, pays for everything else, and then over the years, the transit agency pays back the developer, so that it's kind of like a loan, but the loan is in the form of they built it all out, and then the transit agency pays it back over time to make sure that it gets built really fast.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that if you have a case study to share with me.
Okay,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Any other questions? Yeah, Director Yan.
Thank you for that presentation. I find it, I feel very hopeful. I'm very excited for the future, and this is it's an incredible bragging sheet right here that we get to do, through our district and our constituents. It's super excited about the housing. So whenever I go into my community, whenever I talk to my residents about new housing opportunities, just let them know this is coming down the pike. Their immediate question is going to be, how do I apply?
Yeah.
How do I what is the criteria for, or what criteria for choosing our new neighbors here, or residents for these really highly coveted and just not enough in the world, right? Affordable housing units for working families. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So our development partners really work on that next phase of who moves in. So while a site's under construction, they start holding application readiness workshops out in the community so that people can prep and get ready, get their documentation in line. They'll have to prove certain affordability levels for their household, et cetera. So that is one way. Another way, especially in the city of San Jose, there are preference policies. And so the city of San Jose's preference policies might call, if somebody's been displaced from a neighborhood, that they might get priority points to move in first into that neighborhood again. So there are policies throughout the county that can help define who may be prioritized in moving into sites like this, but it is dependent on local jurisdiction preference policies. For instance, the city of Mountain View has a local live-work preference. So if you live or work in the city of Mountain View, you have some priority points in getting called for the lottery for a site. Same with city of Campbell, and the city of San Jose has two different preference policies as well.
How much input is the board able to put into the selection or application process? I know that the developers are going to be taking lead on this as the frontline interface with potential with new residents. But if we identify criteria is that we want to make sure that equity is part, not that it's not part of it, but ensuring just the highest levels of equity is incorporated through this process.
If there is board guidance that identifies equity initiatives that we can share in the RFPs when we're releasing sites, that's an opportunity. So I'd be happy to talk more with you offline on what you might have in mind, and maybe we can strategize on how to include some of your ideas.
Yeah,
there.
thank you. I appreciate that. And my desired outcome here is that I'm going to be a good ambassador on behalf of VTA. So when we are out in the world telling our residents, talking about housing affordability and all these incredible new units and projects that VTA is bringing forth, that we're able to also talk knowledgeably, informatively about here's the application process, here's the selection criteria, this is how we're
Yes.
prioritizing families here in Santa Clara County who are in danger of being displaced, already has been displaced. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. We're going to move on to our next presentation because we do have a lot, but I appreciate it. I do encourage you to follow up offline. This is some incredibly exciting work that VTA is doing here. So thank you for all you're doing. And we'll look forward to hearing more throughout the years on this. Next is a presentation on VTA's Capital Delivery Program, and we'll be hearing from Casey Emoto, Chief Engineering and Program Delivery Officer.
Good morning, board directors. My name is Casey Emoto. I'm the Chief Engineering Program Delivery Officer. I'm responsible for the division that delivers the capital projects here at VTA, the transportation projects, except for the BART program, which is under Tom McGuire. So I'll move on to the next slide here. That's the opening. So this is my presentation outline. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program, some background on it, use some words that have kind of resonated throughout the other presentations, and then go over some of the major projects that you might be seeing in 2025 as examples to better describe our program. So the best way for me to describe the program is just giving you what the organizational structure looks like. It has 6 departments, and it's a unique setup. We heard Chair Lopez and others talk about the unique nature of VTA, and this is another example where we're like a one-stop shop for delivering everything related to transportation in Santa Clara County, all the different modes, and you'll see that in some of the upcoming slides. Ken Ronci, one of the people listed there, is here in the audience. He leads our transit and transit facilities program. And so we essentially cover the entire county, and whether it's transit or highways, we have projects all throughout the county from, Palo Alto all the way down to Gilroy. So one of the projects I'll talk about is one that's already out to construction, and you might be familiar with it. So this is the EBRC construction project. The construction started in April of 2024. It's scheduled to be completed by the end of 2027 and go into revenue service in 2028. The photo you see there is what you'll see when you go out there. You'll see a lot of stuff up in the air, so it's kind of mind-blowing a little bit because in less than a year we've been able to get this much done, right? And so it's a exciting project. It's about 2.4 miles. Most of it's an aerial structure in the median Capitol Expressway. It has a station we're adding near Story Road, and then the terminal station at Eastridge, as shown on the map. It has a policy advisory board. Director Arenas is the chair of that. Peter Lopez, council member from San Jose, is the vice chair, and Director Candelas is the third member of that. We meet at the same place where the board of directors meets, and we have a meeting coming up later this month. The other aspect of this program is the nature of it, so that it has a very extensive community outreach program. And I'll just cite some of the things. We have a VTA community outreach staff that's working with the contractors, community relations officer. They're in the field daily, addressing issues and following up with things. We have weekly stakeholder emails, monthly stakeholder emails that provide a broader view of the project. We've implemented a shop local marketing campaign and do a lot of innovative stuff on social media. So one of the things that we've developed is a placemat. This is sort of a preview. It's going to the CPC meeting later this month, so it's a draft version. But I wanted to use this as an example of what we're doing at the Capital Programs Committee, one of the committees that was mentioned earlier in one of the earlier presentations. And at this committee, what we're trying to do is to differentiate it between what we take to ANF. We take contracts and contract approvals. This is more to get guidance from the board on programs and direction on how things are going, and for us to report on the status and that sort of thing, right? And so we're also have a placemat like this being developed for the transit program and the highway program. And the next meeting, I said, is later this month. So this is one that covers all facets of the EBRC project, budgets, funding, where things are in the field and status. So it gives a snapshot of all the different aspects of the project. So another area I wanted to cover is what we're doing on transit facilities, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Guadalupe Light Rail efforts as an example. So on this graphic, you'll see a map that shows the Guadalupe Light Rail Yard and then some color coding with a list of things. So I'll start at the bottom. So this is a fairly old facility. It needs some renovation and upgrade and so on. It's not state of the art. So we have a master planning effort underway, and that's the highlighted blue thing there. And the final report for that will be completed later in 2025. We'll be bringing that through one of the committees and to the board to share the results of that. In the middle and the unhighlighted part are the ongoing near-term facility improvements at Guadalupe. So these are the things that show up in our biennial capital program budget. And we're going through a process for the 26-27 fiscal year right now. So these are ones that were funded previously, and they're going through some phase, some part of engineering or construction, that sort of thing. The yellow is renovations we're doing to upgrade restrooms and those sort of things at Guadalupe. And this is being done through what's called a job order contract. It's special legislation that we got from the state legislature to be able to do job order contract. And what it allows us to do is to speed up things getting to construction. So the ones that are listed here, I think 2 out of the 3 are already in construction with the job order contractor doing the construction there. But before that even happens, we already have engineering going on. So the idea is to get the engineering completed, and as soon as the engineering is completed, we can go to the job order contract and ask for one of the contractors to give us a proposal on a task order that we issue to them. So it greatly shortens the amount of time it takes to get through construction. We're doing the same thing at Cerrone Bus Yard, and so these are all being done through JOC. The other thing related to JOC is that in terms of for the board, we have a second JOC that's out on the streets right now. It'll be going to the board for approval later this year, and then we also have a third and a fourth one that we're working on as well. So this is the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So this is an effort that came out of the VTA declaring a climate emergency back in 2020. And so after that, we applied for a state grant, got funded, and we did a project, and we developed the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. And out of that, what's come out of that is an effort to do the implementation of the action items. And so that's where we are right now. And so the next thing coming to the board will be an update on the Sustainability and Climate Action Annual Report, where that will include an update on the status of the CAP. The highway program. So these are the 4 upcoming procurements that will be going to the board in 2025. It's a variety of projects. One that's an express lane project. We're moving into what we're calling phase 6 in the dark blue line on the map there. We have a wildlife crossing project in across 101 in South San Jose, Morgan Hill area. 280 Soundwall project near Bird and 280. That's installing 4 sound walls that will be going into construction, and also an interchange improvement at 280 Wolf. So these are examples of projects going on. We have upwards of 15 to 20 highway projects underway. The Express Lanes program. So there was an item on the Phase 4 project that's listed here that was at the board meeting last night and was approved. So these are the near-term projects that are underway. So far, there have been 6 phases of the Express Lanes program, and it's being done in phases because we don't have the funding to do everything all at once. And so 1, 2, and 3 have been implemented, 1 and 2 on the 237-880 corridor, and then we have a second quarter 85-101 where the Phase 3 project, which covered from the San Mateo County line to about the 237 interchange on the map there, that's an operating express lane. So the interesting thing about the express lane program is it's owned and operated by VTA. So you, the board of directors, are essentially the governing body that directs how this is going to operate, where the revenues can be used. The underlying freeway system we're on, that we operate on, it's owned and operated by Caltrans. So we have an operating and maintenance agreement with Caltrans. We help fund some of the maintenance on the freeway system using express lanes revenues. And in terms of express lane revenues, one of the interesting things we have, when we went and got legislation to be able to do express lanes back in 2004, it included a stipulation where the revenues can be used to fund transit. So that's kind of unique, even in California. And so as part of that, we're looking at ways to be able to fund transit, and the Phase 4 project, as the action that went to you, includes element in there where a certain percentage of the revenues must go to transit as part of that project. And so that was part of the grant that we received. That was part of how we submitted that project. So, and what you see here, Phase 5 and Phase 6 are additional projects we're working on. Phase 5 is nearing design completion. We're working on ways to try to get it fully funded and move into construction. And Phase 6, as I mentioned earlier, is something that we're looking to take out to get the design completed. So next 2 slides, we're going to talk a little bit about the transit signal priority that's underway. This is something that is being done in coordination with the planning division, with my division. So everything you see on this map, it's related to light rail signal priority. And all the work that you see in the blue and red lines are supposed to be completed, or planned to be completed next month. So the new light rail system, it's not going to rely on the detector loops that are out there. The detector loops are going to stay, but there'll be a backup system. We're using virtual loops and GPS to locate the trains and so on. One of the issues we have with the system that's running right now is if we reverse run trains that go through there, because it hits detector loops, it doesn't know which way the trains are coming through. And sometimes you've probably seen train coming signs flashing with no trains. That's one of the reasons why that happens. With this new system, that problem goes away, because it'll know which direction the trains are coming and so on, and be able to operate the lights and all the other warning devices in the right manner. The next slide shows the signal priority that's underway and will be completed this year. And this is all related to bus routes in Santa Clara and San Jose. So there's, I don't know how many miles it is, but there's several miles, and you can see the routes listed in the graphic there. It shows you which routes that this is covering. So this is also another effort that we've been working on, and very pleased to be able to get this completed in 2025 as well. The last project I'll touch on, just to cover the fact that we are working on all different modes, and this is the Central Bikeway project in Santa Clara and San Jose. Goes from Lawrence Expressway over towards White Road on the east side of San Jose. It's about a little over 11 miles, and it's basically going to be a fully separated bike route, essentially catering to bike commuters. And so it's a pretty large project. We're planning on issuing the RFP sometime this summer. It's not fully funded. We have about 8 million in funding for the environmental phase. We're going to the California Transportation Commission in May to get additional funding to make that whole. And we've been able to secure funding for the design phase as well. But the heavy lift will be the construction phase and the cost of the construction of that project. So, as the other speakers have mentioned, it's kind of a unique setup we have. All the things that I covered in other counties is, usually done by multiple agencies, Caltrans, local agencies, county, transit operators and so on. We're able to do that in one place. We work closely with your staffs. A lot of the sponsors for a lot of the projects I just showed are local agencies, and we're the delivery agency. In some cases, VTA is a sponsor. So I just wanted to provide that, and I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's see if we have public comment for this item.
Yes, we have one hand raised. Jordan, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, this is Jordan Moldow from the City of San Jose. Thank you for the staff presentation. For the new board members, I wanted to call particular attention to the Phase 5 and Phase 6 highway projects. They are not just express lane projects. Phase 5 and Phase 6 also call for widening Highway 101 from Sunnyvale down to Morgan Hill, adding one new lane in both directions in order to have a double express lane. Now, the funds will go to transit, which is nice, but we also know that widening highways increases demand for highways, and it's just going to increase the amount of car traffic, the amount of carbon emissions and other emissions. And the cars have to come from somewhere. They're going to come from our local roads, which is going to increase congestion on our local roads, which means that we're going to have to spend more money for the same level of transit service. So I hope VTA will rethink the highway widening portion of those projects. Thank you.
Followed by Blair. You may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Thanks for the words of Jordan. They're really important. 10, 15 years ago here at the VTA, the use of bicycles was really important. The use of practice environmental concerns instead of more and more highway infrastructure projects. That became really important to the VTA, and it was a good time to be around the VTA for those things. It was nice, and now you guys are actually addressing highway widening again, and it hurts. And we just have to proceed cautiously. You really have to listen to people like Jordan and his advice for these sort of projects, I think. Listen to the environmental concerns and really take heed. I had one other item to consider with it, but I think that's about it. I hope we can talk more about bicycle issues coming up. I don't know if this is a sort of item to do that, but it's not mandated by federal agencies so much. I hope we can work on it locally. Thank you.
So
That
I'm going to
concludes
just.
public comment.
Oh,
No, that concludes it.
okay. I just want to have Casey address a couple comments because they're both around the capacity. There's a couple things going on particularly Phase 5, Phase 6. We're talking about the express lanes. We've already cleared that environmentally to do double express lanes. But also the issues about providing any additional capacity with sort of the California, I don't exactly know what it is, policy, I guess you would call it right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is, thank you for the map. So this is an extension of what's already been built. There's a double express lane system through Palo Alto and Mountain View today, and it actually connects to a single carpool lane. And so that's not ideal. It's a bottleneck when you go from 2 to 1 lane. And so we're just carrying that all the way through. And as Carolyn mentioned, we do have an environmental document that allows us to do this. So what Carolyn's referring to is the SB 743, the VMT legislation, I guess, and some of the stuff being done at the state level where they are de-emphasizing adding additional lanes. In this case, we're not widening the freeway per se. We are adding more lanes. It's in the median, in the existing median shoulder area that's available. And, we view it as an operational improvement as well as a safety improvement to have the double lanes in there. If you've used any of the express lanes, you have different levels of speed in there. And we view having the double lanes on 101, being that 101 is the main trunk line in Santa Clara County, carrying, before COVID, I don't know what the numbers are now, but over 200,000 vehicles a day. And the number has not changed that much. But it allows us to have a 2-lane system with 1 lane for merge and divergent traffic and the other lane for through traffic. And so, but there is a challenge, as Carolyn mentioned, about adding additional lanes. So right now, on this project, we have clearance for double lanes all the way down to Cochrane and Morgan Hill. We're rethinking what we would do beyond the 2 circles there. One of the unique things with our system is we have freeway HOV lane to HOV lane direct connectors. So you can go from the carpool lane on 85 going, or let's say from 101 northbound from Morgan Hill, and there's a connector ramp that drops you right into the carpool lane on 85. That's kind of unique. These are the only 3 connectors like this in the 9-county Bay Area region. They were built back in the one of the earlier sales tax measures and so on. So we're making use of that, and so the way that these systems connect, like the Mountain View 101-85, is you do have carpool lanes from the 2 lanes kind of merging, and they connect into the 1 carpool lane going north on 101. And so I think, we haven't decided for sure, but what our thought right now is that the double lane system right now would stay on 101 and only on 101 right now, and the ones going further south would be a single lane. It would be a conversion. The 101 express lanes in our county connect to express lanes in San Mateo County, which is a single lane, and you've probably driven that, but we feel it's important for operational and safety reasons to have the double lanes on 101.
Thanks, Casey. Do we have, and that's all the public comment? Okay, well, we'll close public comment and then go to comments and questions, and we'll just go down the line. Did you have a question? Director Candelas and then Arenas?
All right. Thank you, Chair. No, first of all, thank you for this presentation. I got an opportunity to tour the Eastridge Light Rail Extension a couple weeks back. I do sit on the Policy Advisory Board and have for the past couple of years, and it's exciting to actually see it in person and to be out there. Shout out to Aaron, who was our driver of our tour van. Needless to say, it's transformative, and I'm certainly appreciative of it, and it kind of ties into kind of the previous presentation with TOD, and especially with like the future of the East Valley, specifically East San Jose, with this multi-million-dollar investment with transit and with moving people from the east side of our city to other. That's one, and I'm excited to see, and hopefully staff and VTA staff is taking a bigger picture with that region and with Eastridge, and with whatever happens with the future of Reed Hillview and that part of our valley, and I'm really excited for that. I did have a quick question with regards to the scorecard, which I think is absolutely fantastic to help us track and keep us on track. But with regards to the budget piece, there's a tracker. It's 21%, right, of percentage spent. And then it correlates to the field progress to the left, which we have a percentage. But if for me, I'd like to have like a reference point. Are we on target? Are we below? Or are we something to arbitrate that number against how we're doing? Because 21% to me is a little arbitrary. But that would be helpful, and just a recommendation for me as looking at this. But I think this is super important, especially as we go out and communicate it to our constituencies. So that's just a quick comment on that. Hopefully that could be integrated in future scorecards. Love this though. And then with regards to the TPS system, something as interesting as the timing of our lights. When I was a government affairs staff at Valley Water, I took the bus from HQ down on Almaden Expressway out all the way to Evergreen. It took a while, took a couple hours, and a couple changes in buses, but I took it. And you know, I think it's helpful, and we're gonna have this ability to hopefully, you know, sync our buses and get people moving quicker, which is, I think, one of the criticisms that we all hear of our network. But excited about that. And the last thing I'll talk about is, you know, this is hopefully gonna, you know, benefit our residents when we do the 4th of July fireworks at Lake Cunningham again, and we have the buses running. So appreciate your presentation, and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much. Director Arenas and then Kamei.
Actually, to build off of Director Gandeles, your comments around the build out. One, I did appreciate that dashboard that you had, and I absolutely agree with you. We need to have a comparison or to keep us either on track and to see what those actual numbers are when it has percentages. The second thing is I don't know if I tour it every day, but I sure definitely pass the construction every morning because I'm out of a school district for my daughter, and so I have to go down on Capitol Expressway. I have to. I want to. And it has been just absolutely impressive, the build out. I think, yes, in our lifetime, this is going to happen. And I get really, really excited about what that means for our residents. I think if we had started light rail at our end of our community, we would see how fruitful it can really, really be. And so I'm excited about not only the connection, but what it will mean for the transit agency. I have a question around the Silicon Valley Express lanes. And so you talked about how it's going to be 2 express lanes for a portion of 101, starting in Sunnyvale, or in areas that already, an express lane already exists. And so in the south part of our county, obviously there isn't an express lane. So my question is, will the carpool lane continue to exist and then an express lane? Is that?
Yes, yeah, so if it's not converted, it'll still remain as a carpool lane. And so the other thing I forgot to mention is that in the, later in the March committees and April board meeting, we're gonna be bringing through the first expenditure plan for the Express Lanes program. And so that'll be presented, that'll lay out everything, including, like, I think about a 10-year projection on projected revenues and where we're gonna be planning to spend funds, you know, and so it'll provide a complete picture for the first time on everything. You might ask, why are we doing it now? The program has kind of grown in small pieces, and so now we're getting to a point where there's some amount of revenue that we've been able to gather, and so we feel like it's the right time to go ahead and develop the expenditure plan. That's one of the requirements through our legislation. I know it's one of our general manager's priorities, so we've worked with the fiscal division and Greg and his team, Mike Smith, and my team, and we've developed that, and we'll be bringing that to the April board meeting.
Wonderful, thank you, I appreciate it. I mentioned earlier, if we would have started our light rail in the east side, I think you would see a lot more ridership than what it has now. And so I'll apply that logic with our express lanes. In the south part of the county, there isn't like there is in our District 8, where there's a lot of the Yahoo and Google's busing people out in order to get to work. South County has a lot of super commuters. And so I'd love for my colleagues and everyone to consider where we begin the express lanes as you work out the expenditure plan, because the need is in the south part of the county. Anyways, that's just my little piece, but I will obviously talk to you about it in April or May.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the things I wanted to add related to the expenditure program, one of the things that will be listed as a recommendation is a couple of other new segments of express lanes. There's one that could work off of the 237-880 interchange, because if you go south from there, there's already an existing carpool lane that connects right into the express lane. So I think we're going to be proposing, recommending funding to start work on that. The second one actually is in South County, where the city of Morgan Hill, through Assembly's Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren's office, the city of Morgan Hill was able to get 500,000 towards doing the PID phase, which is the Caltrans planning phase, to study the development of express lanes and, basically extending the carpool express lane south from Cochrane down to the 25 interchange. And as part of the expenditure plan, we're recommending, because the request was for 2 million, so if we got 500,000, can't do anything with that to have a full project. And so we need to find another 1.5 million. That's part of the 101-85 corridor, so the 101-85 revenues that are generated in the corridor can be used along that corridor, and that falls under that. And so that's another part of the recommendations that we'd be bringing to you in April to talk about making that whole and getting the PID work for lanes south of Cochrane to 25 in the South County area to be able to get that started as well.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Kami.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. And, I understand that the express lanes provide revenue, and I know that it's more revenue than had originally been thought. But I will say, I'm going to share a strong concern on the 85, and I know that it's not even in a phase yet. It's only on the environmental work. But, the minute that you convert the space to another lane, you will never take it back. People love their cars. And so, I had always hoped that, as you go on the light rail north, there really is not that north-south connectivity. And if we go ahead and say, well, in the meantime, we're going to convert the space on 85 to an express lane, I know it will generate revenue, but we will never, ever, it took 22 years to get it to East Ridge. It will never go to the west side. And I want to emphasize something that Director Weinberg mentioned. People on the west side feel that they have nothing. I have been trying to use transit, and I take the light rail and I take the bus, the 57, and on the west side, it takes me an hour, right? So I have to plan my day very carefully. As you look at the different measures and renewal of any of those measures, the west side has gotten really not very much. Not very much. And to say that, oh, well, you're going to get an express lane, well, that's not enough. You really need that connectivity to make the system whole. I'd love for a light rail to go down Lawrence Expressway, connect at Tasman, and just have that north-south connectivity. Because I got to go over to Campbell, or I've got to go over to, or take the bus up north. Given the geologic time that it takes for some of these projects to happen, I'd like to see that connectivity north-south, because then you have a whole system. Once you have a whole system, it becomes utilized in a better way, right? And when you think about where are the jobs, where is the development happening? It's happening on the west side. Those areas are all market ready because the jobs are in Cupertino, in Sunnyvale, in that sort of corridor. But we don't have that connectivity. And so I know this is like years and years, I'll be gone, but but we need to think about these things, because once you take that lane, and have a double lane on 85, forget it. It's just never coming back. So as you're doing the environmental work, you may want to think about, well, do we need to do something else here? Because the west side, these are residents who vote, and they're not going to vote for an extension of a measure if they really have not been delivered much of anything. So that's what I hear. I don't know about the other cities. At least, on the north side, you get a little bit of transit, but, there are many communities who feel that, no, why should we, support another measure? And I know later on you're going to talk about it. When we're not getting any services. I have to take my car. So I just know we have time, but since we have time on the environmental document, I think maybe looking at alternatives and weigh those, I think is going to be pretty important.
Can I say one thing? So one of the things for the 85 corridor is the environmental document for express lanes is completed. And it did have double lanes in some segments, but there's nothing preventing us from just doing a single lane and a conversion. Because if we're going to run transit or do other things in the corridor, it's going to fall on VTA to own and operate and fund that. And so then the question is, okay, where is that revenue going to come from? Well, if we do a conversion of the single carpool lane and it generates revenue as a single lane express lane, not widening, not adding additional lanes, that revenue could be used to fund transit and other things in the on that stretch. Or, I mean, it could help with the whole overall program for that route, right? And so I think that's an option. We'd have to go back and do a revalidation or something of the environmental document, which showed double for a certain segment between 280 and 87, I think. The rest of it was a single lane, but we could make it so it's a single lane the whole distance. And if it's a single lane, it costs less. It's much faster to implement, and it would generate revenues and provide operational benefits for that corridor. And those revenues could be used for transit and other things in the corridor.
I guess I just wanted to highlight the fact that the west side really feels that they have not been addressed, you know, and I think that if we, in a few years, and I don't know, you know, when that may be, are going out to either extend our measures for funding, we want to create a value proposition for the community to support, and that these are the things that we've done. Because if you haven't delivered, you know, something that people feel that they have had, you know, use and value and all of that, it's very hard. I mean, people are not going to tax themselves. And Santa Clara County has been very, very good at taxing themselves in order to be able to support transit. But I think it's sort of, when, you know, I mean, people wonder, well, when is it coming over here? You know, development is happening, congestion is happening, and yet we're not sort of like addressing those types of issues. So I just kind of want to think about it more broadly in order to sort of be prepared when we ask people for money, that taxpayers know that, yes, in fact, we have delivered, and this is what we've done. Because that's kind of down the line, a few years, maybe more than a few years, but it's something that, you know, that I hear in my community, and I don't know if others hear it too, but I just think that we have enough time to prepare to make that value proposition so that there's a general, everybody is going to support it.
Thank you so much. Couldn't agree more, and I think we'll have other opportunities throughout the year, and look forward to engaging you on raising up those very issues. Any other questions? Okay, we want to get moving our next, go ahead, but
Okay.
we have a couple more presentations.
I agree with Board Member Kamei on, I think in the last measure, the West Valley council members went in on State Route 85 for there to be transit on that, and then it hasn't moved forward. But I don't know why it didn't move forward. Maybe it was too costly, but would another way of having that would be a rapid bus system that went on the 85 using a center lane or whatever lane, but having it be rapid, because other places is hard to get bus rapid transit. Another question is on page 11. It mentioned signal transit priority, and in it there is a little piece that's Sunnyvale in the north section, that's Moffett Park, and in the future, over the next 20 years, we're going to have, we've zoned it for 20,000 housing units. So I was just wondering, it says that it's done this year. Is that as fast as it'll go, or are there more things that can be done to make it more rapid?
You mean in addition to signal priority?
In addition to light rail, is this, the only means to make light rail faster? Are there other, ideas in the pipeline to make light rail faster? Going to that end? Are there like, I've seen it where there's like other trains, there's gates that go down and then the train goes really fast and those kind of things is,
Yeah, I don't think we have any plans to put in additional gates and those sort of things to make it faster. The signal priority is something that's gonna benefit light rail, right off the top of my
so
head.
there's no other, projects in the pipeline to make that section of light rail faster?
We could go back and take a look to see if there are other ways to do that, but I'd have to rely on some of the other folks from our
Okay.
agency, and we could, take that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks so much. Take care. And great work. Thank you.
Okay, thanks much. Let's try to, maybe Casey, if we can try to be brief also with any answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And Mr. Moto, thank you very much for that presentation. It was very good. I found it very informative. I do want to echo what Director Kamei said. I was originally going to say something similar. I think she said it far more eloquently and better than I would have. But that is a real issue for me that I'm struggling with, not just with my constituents, but with my colleagues on local city councils as well. I just want to put that out there so staff knows that. Real briefly, I understand why the projects that are in the presentation were included in the presentation. There's a lot more, of course, that the VTA is working on, and I'm just, as an orientation question, where do I go to get information about other projects that aren't a part of this workshop?
There's information on our website, but then also at the CPC meeting, we have the Highway and Transit Program that'll be presented, and we have we'll have a presentation on KPIs related to schedule and budget for all the projects in those two programs, which is most of our projects. So.
Okay, but if there are other projects that I want to get questions about, do I contact you directly? Do I
Yes.
contact the general manager and she goes to you? I reach
Work
out
through-
directly to you?
Or through government affairs.
Through government affairs?
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. We'll go to our next presentation, which is, and thanks so much, Casey, from Tom McGuire on the BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project. And again, just while we're setting up, do look forward to following up a lot of those items. Those are priorities for myself as well. Thanks so much. Tom.
Okay, good morning, directors. Tom McGuire, Chief Mega Projects Officer, and I run the expansion program to bring BART into BART Phase 2 into Silicon Valley. I'm going to go pretty quickly here because I know we're tight for time. My colleague Erica Rokes, our External Affairs Director, is going to talk about community engagement and how we're working with all of your constituents on this project. But I also want to take just a few minutes to give, especially our new board members, a review of how we got to the point we're at right now and why this project's so important for VTA to make progress on. So let me just jump into the history. To give you the context, we are building the Phase 2 extension of the BART Silicon Valley program. BART Silicon Valley is about closing the ring between Caltrain and the current end of the BART system so that the entire San Francisco Bay is ringed with high-speed, frequent, reliable electrified rail. Phase 1 extension, which I'll show you some photos of in a moment, opened in 2020. We are now building the final 6 miles from the Berryessa station to Santa Clara. We're building it in partnership with BART, and it's a unique partnership. Santa Clara County is not part of the original 3-county BART district that built the original BART system dating back to the 1960s. So when we chose to bring BART in, when our voters chose to bring BART into Silicon Valley, we had to set up an arrangement whereby our taxpayer dollars, our Measure A and Measure B funds, pay for the capital construction and the operations. We hold all the contracts. We're essentially the client for all of our construction contractors, and we, VTA, will own the infrastructure from the county line, just north of Milpitas, all the way to Santa Clara. But BART is an important partner. BART staff are deeply embedded in our engineering and design teams. They're overseeing the construction in partnership with us, and they will operate the system seamlessly once it is complete. It's been a real journey to get here, and that journey really began in earnest in 2000 when the voters of this county passed the Measure A sales tax, and that formed the basis of funding for the extension from the historic terminal of BART at Fremont. Since 2000, we entered into what we call a comprehensive agreement with BART about a year later. That agreement continues to this day, and it governs all of our relationships with BART, all the way down to how we split the operating and maintenance costs that we share for the overlapping parts of the system. In 2009, your predecessors and our predecessors made the really important decision to break the project into two phases so that we could get the Milpitas and Berryessa extension built faster. And that decision was made in 2009, and that enabled groundbreaking in 2012 and the opening of the system as far as Milpitas in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. But as that construction was taking place, we continued to do the planning and environmental clearance work and the preparatory work for what we're trying to build right now, which is phase 2. And just the last item on here is we reached a really important milestone in phase 2 last summer, when the federal government accepted us into what's called the engineering phase of New Starts. And I'll come back to that later when I talk about the dollars and why that federal guarantee is so important. Phase 1 extension opened in 2020. I'm sure you're familiar with the Berryessa and Milpitas stations. They're beautiful stations, incredible architecture, and they are full service transit centers. In fact, the Milpitas station is the second busiest transit transfer in Santa Clara County after downtown San Jose. So it just shows the importance of connecting regional transit to local transit and access here in the county. The Phase 2 extension, I could talk about the slide all day, but I'm going to try to go fast. Going from right to left on this diagram, this is the project we're trying to build. So it starts at the existing Berryessa station, which is above ground. The trains from Berryessa will dive into a tunnel at a place we call the East Portal, and there'll be a 5-mile long single bore tunnel that stretches from just east of the 101 freeway, under the freeway, through Little Portugal, along Santa Clara Street, all the way to the Diridon station, and then it'll continue up into Santa Clara, go above ground at the West Portal, travel through a significant new yard we're building to store and maintain trains in partnership with BART, and terminate at the Santa Clara station. So the Phase 2 project is 6 miles long, 5 miles in a tunnel, 4 new BART stations, and a major yard. Two things that this board's in my time here has been really adamant about is the importance of the passenger experience and the importance of iconic architecture for the system. Passengers who board stations at downtown or Diridon can expect to pay their fare at surface level. They'll travel down to the station through some long escalators with a single switchback that you see there, and then they'll enter the station from a tunnel called an adit, which allows them to reach the actual deep board tunnel. The reason the station is designed this way is because it's designed to be built in a way that minimizes the impacts of construction on downtown San Jose. So that tunnel is underneath the center of Santa Clara Street, but the station is off street on property that VTA has been purchasing and assembling for years. And that means that most of the vertical digging and disruption will take place off the street, not in Santa Clara Street, and it'll help us, I don't want to say completely avoid, but minimize the number of times we have to close significant traffic flow on Santa Clara. Again, the iconic architecture, this is what the Little Portugal station will look like, 28th Street, Little Portugal. It is just north of 28th Street, so it's meant to complement, not hide, but actually complement the view of the historic Five Wounds Church. The downtown station, really our showpiece station, and the one that'll carry the most riders. This is the current design, and it's meant to provide access both directly onto Santa Clara Street, but also into what will be a significant transit-oriented development, a project on the current parking lots that exist between at Santa Clara and First Street. Our Diridon station, again, meant to complement both the downtown west development and the new Diridon intermodal facility when that gets built. And then our at-grade Santa, this is the only station on the system where the tracks will be at grade. The Santa Clara station integrated into the parking garage and providing a very easy transfer into the Santa Clara Caltrain station and Santa Clara University. I'm really glad that I'm giving this presentation after Jesse O'Malley Solis spoke, because each of these stations is designed to unlock and help the cities of San Jose and Santa Clara realize their long-term development goals. This is a once-in-a-generation infrastructure project, and we believe over 60 million square feet of commercial, residential, and other land uses can be unlocked by building transit. And the stations are designed to coordinate with the city of San Jose's Five Wounds Urban Village, the design development frameworks for both Five Wounds and for downtown San Jose, the stationary plan for Diridon, and the stationary specific plan for Santa Clara. In terms of funding, it's an expensive project. It's $12.75 billion program. We have a number of funding partners, including the federal government. The Federal Transit Administration is expected to pay 40% of that, or $5.1 billion. I mentioned the New Starts engineering phase. That's what it means to get into the New Starts engineering phase. We have clarity from the feds about how much they're going to fund, and this is about the same percentage that they paid towards phase one. It's the same percentage they're paying towards the new downtown rail extension in San Francisco. Our job is to make sure that we have a balanced budget and that we've identified all of our local and state funding sources, and that we're ready to unlock that $5.1 billion. And the simplest takeaway from this slide is that if you look at that pie chart, there is a gap of about $700 million, and that's because we wish we'd gotten more money from the FTA, but we got what we got. So our job right now is to find ways to close that gap, make sure we have a balanced budget so that we can go and realize the federal commitment. And this is, I'm not going to repeat what I said last night, but the cost savings is the paramount concern right now. What this board can expect to hear from us is as follows. Each month, my team and I will come and give you the latest, whether it's a construction update or a funding update or anything you need to know at the VTA board meetings. There's also a BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 Oversight Committee that meets monthly that gets a much more detailed report, including trends in terms of cost, schedule, risk, and how we're managing that. Our Auditor General also participates in those and provides an independent view of the project. And then we have a joint committee between the VTA board and the BART board that meets a few times each year to talk about the shared oversight and shared concerns. We'll be bringing you updates, especially on the funding, to all three of these venues as our cost savings journey continues and as the federal funding piece gets more clear. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Erica Rokes, our External Affairs Director, to talk about how we're engaging your constituents.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I lead a team of engagement and planners and public engagement professionals that engage with your communities to keep them updated about the BART Phase 2 project. This here is just a snapshot of our physical engagement from last year. We hosted over 45 events and engaged with almost 2,500 people. In addition to physical engagement, we also are active in social media, have our website, blogs, newsletters, and such that reaches tens of thousands of people. So we're out and about in the community. Wanted to highlight today two key programs that our team is involved in. I mentioned the community working groups last night. Wanted to give you a touch more background. We established these groups in 2015 to have a conduit into the community with community leaders and key stakeholders in the area to share and disseminate information about the project and to share with us information they're hearing and be engaged in the project. So we meet quarterly with them at this point to get feedback, and when there's information in what's happening related to design, we provide that feedback to you at the board here and meet with them in advance of coming here. Mentioned the update last night here, so I'm going to skip over that and wanted to touch on our Thriving Business Program that was developed to support small businesses during construction. We've engaged with the board on it to refine the program, and just wanted to note that the board in last year approved $15 million to support this program over a 5-year period, including direct financial assistance for small businesses. The Thriving Business Program is made up of 3 elements: each shop local, which is marketing to support foot traffic, as well as a local resource network to provide technical and financial assistance to small businesses, and then the direct financial assistance. And we talked over the engagement look ahead last night as well, and back to Tom to discuss current efforts.
Okay, and again, I'm not going to duplicate slides from last night. I'm just going to skip right to the last 2 things, what to expect. You can expect to hear us talk, like I said, in more detail about expectations about when we'll be ready to show a balanced budget to the FTA funding partners and submit that full funding grant agreement. We'll go through this slide in more detail at each of those meetings. And then finally, what else you can expect is heavy construction continuing to ramp up at the West Portal site next to the Santa Clara Caltrain station. As you can see, by May, that will be a significant heavy construction site with sound walls and curtain walls on both sides, and we'll be building the launch structure, which is the first significant piece of heavy construction for BSV Phase 2. So that's really exciting. We'll continue to share pictures and invite you out on the site anytime you're available. That concludes our presentation.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Do we have public comment for this item?
Yes, we do have one. Blair, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks a lot for this item. As I talked about last night, and we're beginning new stages of ourselves here at the VTA and BOD, I think there needs to be a real effort on being open and clear with each other, not just with each other, but within the public process, so the public can understand more clearly. I spoke of ideas of safety. You guys made a really important decision to lay the tracks side by side in the single bore. An important safety consideration that we don't ever talk about, and I wish you could. You had upcoming safety issues around train station placement and how the stairs can work. You didn't want to talk about the safety issues at first. You're coming around to that. Making the safety issue, it's important to be clear on that. And that's how we talk about our future of high-speed rail as a shared process for the Bay Area, not just fighting for only San Jose's little piece of the pie. Really learn to work how it's a full Bay Area process. I really hope you can. Thank you.
Raphael, please accept the unmute and begin speaking.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is, okay. Hi, my name is Rafael Gavilanes. I am the project architect on this project for FMG and Company. We are the architect of record for the Diridon station. We are a small, minority, woman-owned firm and have been working on this project for 6 years. Yesterday, we received a stop work notice from the General Managing Engineering Prime, who informed us that they were directed by VTA to discontinue design work until options were produced to address the funding gap of almost $1 billion. While we appreciate the importance of being judicious and managing efficiently and effectively, there are cost associations with stop work order. The impacts to a large business are present. However, those impacts are greatly exaggerated when coming to a small business. As a firm of 20 people, a stop work immediately puts 4 people working on this project out of work. We're one firm, and I understand there are multiple small businesses with the impacted by the stop work order.
Roland, please accept the unmute.
Thank you and good morning. My first comment is I don't understand how the downtown station could possibly have more ridership than Diridon. Now, with regards to passenger experience, I'd like to touch on station entrances. We have 2 light rail stations, and they're both south of Santa Clara, not north. There's one on 1st Street, and there's one on 2nd Street. So it would seem obvious to me, as a future user of the system, to have at least one entrance between 1st and 2nd Street and south of Santa Clara, not north of it. Another thing that has never been addressed is the massive ridership we could get from San Jose State. Why don't we have some kind of entrance around City Hall, from here around 5th Street? Thank you.
That ends public comment, Chair.
Thanks so much. Closing public comment. And while we can't comment, we can have staff follow up on some of the questions that were raised. I'm going to go to directors for any comments or questions on this. Great. I don't see any, so thank you so much for the presentation and the additional context, as well as for last night. With that, we'll go to our last presentation today, which is on the potential transportation revenue measures. And we'll hear from Beverly Green, Chief Government Affairs Officer, and Greg Richardson, Deputy General Manager. And we have Jason Baker joining us from Caltrain.
Want me to go? Oh, I can't go
Good morning, Board Directors. This is a presentation associated with potential transportation revenue measures conducted by MTC, Caltrain, and VTA. There are a number of transit agencies in the 9-county region that are facing short-term fiscal deficits. As you're aware, VTA's Measure A expires in 2036. This is a presentation on VTA's thinking on this, the MTC potential regional measure poll conducted with 4 and 9 counties, the Caltrain poll, and the research that VTA is conducting as it ponders a revenue measure. I'm joined by Greg Richardson, VTA Deputy GM, and Caltrain's Jason Baker in person, and Rebecca Long of MTC and Ruth Bernstein virtually if there are questions. We'll start with Greg, who will set the table for VTA for our discussion.
Thank you, Beverly. I promised her it would be 3 to 5 minutes, so I'm going to go quick. This is just to give the board, especially the members here, a quick history of where the previous board was and the decisions that were made back in October as to our position as it relates to the regional measure. So if we can go to if I could go to the next slide. So the message that was being delivered then, just in context, the regional measure was more about operating deficits, and it was really not much about capital. Our message was more, not so much on deficits, but about restoration of service, infrastructure we need, and that ultimately we don't want to see a redirection of TDA dollars. That was kind of the message that we were sending, a little bit different than what the rest of the region was. The other message that was being delivered or was being discussed in this regional process was the contributions to some of the partner agencies who were facing some of that fiscal cliff. And what we wanted to make sure people understood is we have those obligations already in place contractually with both BART and Caltrain, and we are meeting those expectations. So we wanted to make sure that we were continuing to provide the funds necessary to both of those agencies, and at the same time trying to figure out if there were ways for us with a new measure, our own measure, to augment some of those dollars that were going to not only those two agencies, but others within the region to, again, help support the overall region as a whole. And so what we were offering was basically what we termed a 5-county measure. And I don't know if any of you were really keeping up with all of the different iterations that were going on, but basically we were saying, MTC or whomever, go ahead and do the 4-county measure. Santa Clara will opt in their own term of an opt-in on their own, and it would be then the 5 counties. Our obligation then would be make sure that we were providing funds necessary to our partner agencies. We would do our best to identify ways in which to support other agencies within the region with those dollars. But the message really to Santa Clara County was we need our regional partners to succeed. That is absolutely vital. We also need to maintain our own fiscal health and our overall operational and service needs. Those are things that were critical for us as we move forward as this county and as we were moving forward. And again, it was about really maintaining and restoring our service. And so as part of this effort, which we don't have on here, the approach we were taking was a half-cent measure, 30 years, call it effective 2026, that then for a 10-year period, it would be in concert with the current 2000 Measure A. So there would be additional proceeds coming in to ensure that we could help our partner agencies, as well as identify funds to help restore the service and get us in a position better suited long-term. Then ultimately, in 2036, the Measure A would fall off, and then we would be in the exact same position we were with the current 2000 Measure A for another 20 years. That was the approach that we were taking. And the idea with what we would need as far as those dollars is on these next 2 slides would just show the primary areas that we were focused on utilizing these monies. Most of it, again, about operations, systems, service, and then ultimately the partner agencies, as well as certain transit transformation elements that were part of the overall regional component.
Did support and want to see the region take an approach not just focusing on deficits, but focusing on a path toward abundant transit, using plans like the really good visionary network plan that VTA has put together. This is going to take a set of puzzle pieces at the regional level, in some places at the local level and at the state level. We really want to see Santa Clara County collaborating with the region to make sure that the local and regional services are funded and that transit coordination happens. And it was encouraging to see in the local surveys that voters do prefer a regional approach. So really urge you to take a regional approach to make sure that our local and regional services are funded and coordinated.
Jordan, you may begin speaking when ready.
I want to echo something that Councilmember Kamei mentioned earlier, that the voters really need to be excited about the measure, and they need to be excited about what the measure is going to get them. So please make sure that the measure is going to be expanding transit greatly. It's not just about maintaining it or decreasing deficits. Second, the measure should focus on seamless transit principles. The board talked last night about transit passes for the Super Bowl, and that's great. And it highlighted the problem of there's no fare integration, so having such a pass is really difficult. When we're gonna have visitors coming from all over, and even our residents in the 9 counties, they need to be able to transfer between agencies much more easily than they do now. And finally, the measure should really focus on operations for public transportation. Public transportation needs to vastly expand, and it's really the operations funding that is really lacking at this point. I would not like to see measures that are going to invest in highways or that are going to invest in just arbitrary county flex.
And we have our last speaker. You may begin speaking when ready.
Thank you. My name is Roland. I would like to talk about broken promises to the voters, specifically what happened with Measure A and 2000 Measure A in Caltrain. VTA, unlike the other counties, never built any track south of San Jose, where I live near Blossom Hill. But what's worse than that is that the project was fully funded back in 2012. And then VTA, actually we already have spent $6 million with Union Pacific to relocate the fiber so that we could start laying the second track. And then VTA completely defunded it and transferred the funding to the pocket track in Mountain View, Super Bowl 50. So I don't really understand how next measure could possibly pass. Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thanks so much. Closing public comment. Do we have comments or questions from directors? No? Is there anything staff wants to add or respond to?
Just to let you know that we expect to complete a final questionnaire by the end of this month, and we're looking at starting the research in the spring and having some more definitive understanding of how Santa Clara voters feel.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, Director Weinberg, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I was going to hold this, but based on that comment, I do want to respond to it. Santa Clara County is not homogeneous, and certainly the 9 counties are not. So voters in South Santa Clara County are going to have very different needs, very different perceptions, and they're going to respond to very different arguments than, say, voters who live in South of Market and San Francisco. To the extent that the board wants to move forward with some kind of a measure in coordination with other counties or even just on our own, to make it easier for us to go back to our councils, our other boards, and get support, to the extent that you are able to give talking points that are not necessarily county-wide, but are more of a microcosm of the constituencies that we represent, I think the greater a chance you're going to have to see success. Because if you find what's successful in central San Jose, and that's the only message that's being given out, that may not be as useful for me to use in Los Altos or someone else to use in Morgan Hill. So I know that that's more work, and I know that it's a lot more expensive if you're going to poll it, but because of the threshold that's needed in order for this to be successful, and because of all the other tax measures that we're going to see on the ballot from other agencies that are not transit-related, I think it's critical for staff to be able to really tailor talking points for individual regions for this to be successful.
Thank you for that comment. I do want you to know, I recognize that there are 15 different cities in Santa Clara, which is a huge county. And so we have been actually talking about that issue right there.
Yeah, and expect to hear more from staff on that. Any other questions or comments? No, thank you so much for presenting. Really appreciate
Thank you.
the important updates. And that is our last item. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all so much for your participation and staff.
Thank you. I will be ending the meeting for all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, they're all like even bigger than ours. And they're all, and they're all shorter.
Who's this?
I'm just reading different agencies.
Other agencies.
And they've got a much sweeter deal than anybody else has.